Okay, so looking at your model, and understanding what you want to try to fix, which is the key areas down in here where you're struggling to get smooth continuity between the two and to remove that baby's butt. As I looked at this model, there's also a couple other things that are potentially causing problems. So here we have a surface that ends up going to, a singular point. So that making it a three-sided surface. Um, this is also something that what ends up happening is when we see it in a mirrored version, even though you've got all your curves and your guide curves for this surface tangent at the center, a classic thing that happens when going to a singular point is that the surface doesn't have the same amount of control down at the bottom. So what that happens is when we come up and we go and mirror that surface, let's just do a quick mirror here. So we'll mirror it, we'll select the face and plane, and then we'll select the body, which is this one here. We'll automatically do a knit surface. So what you can now see is if I hide this curve so that it can be better seen, we get that, we still got one more sketch in there to hide. We can see that our phantom lines for tangency does not show up. Now, if we come back and we do a quick evaluate, and we're going to check deviation analysis. So we'll select that edge, we'll turn up the number, and we'll go calculate. You can see up here where you've got a lot of control, it's pretty nice. But then as we get down here, because the surface doesn't quite know what to do in this area, because we have a lack of control and we're just kind of allowing it to do what it wants, you can see that the deviation progressively gets worse. So I'll also walk through a way of fixing that to change or fix a three-sided surface into a four-sided surface, which the software likes considerably more. Now, to go over some of the things that we're going to talk about. So we have a nice network of curves set up. We have a lot of surface edges that we can use. But now one of the things is we're going to talk about, again, primary surfaces and transition surfaces. Also building surfaces off of other surface edges when you can versus using a curved and various edges. So we'll take a look at that. We'll also talk a little bit about the order that you went in. So right now, as you see, this was one of the very first boundary surfaces you built, which, excellent start, good way to go. Whether we fixed this corner now or later doesn't really matter. The next boundary surface you created was this one here, and then this one here to go off of that. Now, we can automatically see, if we look down here, the lines that you used to create that boundary surface was all sketches. There was no surface edge. Ideally, what you would do is you would use this surface edge to build off of that. It just gives you a better curve and smoother and cleaner. So the next is you've got this here. Again, you set up a lot of the boundary curves, and that's great. You'd set up this curve, but you can see that we didn't take the opportunity to build off of this surface edge. Then the next surface that was built was the one down in the bottom here. All boundary surfaces, which is great. Boundary surfaces are some of my favorite surface tools to use when doing surface modeling. But again, you can kind of see one sketch was used to create that. Now if we come back here, this is the last one that was used. I'm pretty sure, again, we're missing those um, edges. It also looks like on this surface we didn't take the opportunity to use this curve here to get that overall side view that you're looking for that matches up with your top form. So that's just a simple fix. So as we look at this, one of the key things is we're going to talk about order of building your surfaces and the why. So the method that I would use is I would still build this as a primary surface, but then I would build these two as primary surfaces as well, or secondly, and then what I would do is I would use this surface edge and this surface to build the transition here. And the reason that I would do that is because in the start we can build this using this surface edge, but here we don't have a surface edge to build this one. So it will make it difficult to get that smooth transition. Versus if I build this second and get the way to look that I want, then what I do is I have two surface edges to build this off of. So those are kind of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about and go through. So the very first step that I'm going to do is I'm not going to necessarily go back and redo all your curves, but what I am going to do is go back and delete the surfaces and utilize those network of curves to kind of show you what we want. So again, if I minimize all these surfaces so that we only see the ones, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My goal is to add more surfaces. Now, ideally, the fewer surfaces you can use, the best. But if you're not getting what you want, usually that means you need to break it down into a few more parts and add some surfaces. Same as with controlling surfaces, the less curves you can use, great. But if you start having an issue with your surfacing, then what you need to do is put in some more controls. And we'll also take a look at, like I say, our goal is to remove these bumps that we'll see in here to fix them. I've also noticed that we've got a little bit of jagged edge there. So what we want to do is when surfacing, we want to make sure we're looking at the surface accurate and that what we've built is what we see, so that, as some people who are first starting out, they're not trying to fix this, when the reality is that if we come over to our document properties and we go to model display, or my apologies, we go to image quality and we turn this up, knowing that the higher we turn it up, the slower our performance is. But if you have a fast enough computer, that's fine. So now we can see that jaggedness is gone because it has refined it to represent the proper surface. One of the things that we can still see if I go in and I stitch these surfaces, or I knit these surfaces, you can still see we've got that weird edge. So we'll also go through and fix all of those. So that's kind of the intro to what we're going to look at and what we're going to fix. This will be this first video, and it'll be a series of videos. So our next step, like I mentioned, will be to go back to where we just have our network of curves and start filling in and creating the primary surfaces.